Harriet Meir.
Thank you for watching another episode of Help Me YPN. I'm your executive, Kevin Puricelli. And shout out to all the sponsors. We got two with us in this episode, which is great. So let's hear it from Justin Bush and then Bryan Acosta. Tell us about your companies.
All right. Hello, beautiful people. My name is Justin Bush. I'm with Cross Country Mortgage. We are a 50-state direct lender. Certainly in this market, we are seeing a lot more opportunities outside of our direct lending space. That means broker products, so debt service related opportunities, foreign national loans, as well as anything that you could possibly need when it comes to residential lending. That said, I'll pass it on to the next sponsor.
Bryan.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. Guys, Revival Capital, we're changing the game in South Florida. If you want to know how awesome we are, just go to Google and search us, and you'll see over 100 5-star reviews. So we would love to serve you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so this episode is all about investing. So let's lay it all out to begin with. Most of you should know this. But let's talk about the different types of real estate investing. But let's go around until we run out or until someone can't say one. So go ahead, Bryan.
What was that? I'm sorry?
What type of investing? Just the name of an investment. Like a type of investment.
What type of investing in real estate? Multifamily. Multifamily is big.
Fix and flip.
Single unit.
Honestly, I think the first type of investment starts with your own.
That's good.
I'm gonna do something sexy. Trailer parks.
Hey,
Yeah, I've never heard of a trailer park investment. Keep going.
You have to elaborate on that.
Yeah.
I will.
Like now.
You're up.
1031 exchanges.
Bird method. Buying whole.
Next.
Yeah, next.
Listen, this trailer park thing is hitting really
Yeah,
good for me, just so you know.
Mate has always got the curveballs. It's beautiful. Okay, so we talked about a few. You could have said industrial. You could have
I was gonna
said
say commercial.
vacation.
Warehouse.
Warehouse.
You know,
Right, but we're good.
business.
We're good. We need to continue on with the podcast anyway. So yeah, I appreciate it. Well, this could have gone for hours. So, how did you get started investing in real estate? For everybody who's invested, you got any? What investments you got?
Dumb luck. You know, it's funny how life works out. I actually was renting a place. Seller needed to sell it, and this actually happened to work out right in 2010. So he purchased, I believe, for $225. Actually bought it, $70,000 cash at the time. Owned a title company, a real estate company. Had a couple, mortgage relationships. So I think I was out of pocket on the whole deal like $5,000. So that was just dumb luck. That's how I got into it. Now I have a few and always looking to expand that.
Cool.
A few years ago, I inherited a property from my grandfather, and I took a cash out refinance, took that liquid, leveraged it into acquiring multiple properties, utilizing private money, and it's been growing ever since.
Congrats. Go on.
So, Katherine mentioned the first home, and that's why it's beautiful, right? To own a home, because at the moment that you buy it, it's something meaningful for your family, but it ends up being a blessing to you. We were actually similar story to yours. We were renting in the home, and I actually told the landlord, I said, one day you're gonna sell me this house, and he was like, no, I'm not gonna sell you this house. And one day he just came and he's like, remember when you told me that you wanted to buy this house? And he's like, well, today's the day. And so we bought that house, and it was a blessing to us. It had 2 units in it, so it was awesome. It helped us pay that mortgage, which was great. And now even to this day, we still have that property rented out, and I was able to refi cash out. So use a little bit of all your strategies to grow and continue to build a real estate portfolio.
Mate?
160 acres in California was first purchase. After that, duplex in Cleveland, house in Miami.
And a trailer?
Not
The whole damn park, baby.
the trailer is like a master degree. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Single family home, and then I did the last one was buying 4 duplex lots with business partner, rezone it, and we got the verification letter that we can build up to 72 units. So now we are looking either to sell it to developer. We actually had it under contract fell apart. I think we're gonna go to the route where we're gonna get a site approval. So we're gonna invest again some money and time, get site approval, and then sell it for much more.
Nice.
Very nice. Well, first, my own property. I mentioned that because you have to initially, and it's the same way you have to educate your buyers and not get so emotionally involved and make sure that everything in real estate is an investment, even if it's your own home. The worst thing you can do is being emotionally attached to that property and overpay, especially in certain markets. Like if we have a highly appreciating market, it's okay to overpay a little bit for that property because you're gonna get it back. But I want to say I was smart about my property about almost a little over 10 years ago, and then I do have another investment property that rents out.
Katherine, was that a listing appointment that you went to? The house that you purchased?
No.
No? Okay. No, I'm asking because a lot of agents do go to listing appointments, which we should. And majority things like, how can I list this property? When really the first question is, should I buy it?
That is very true.
That's a
And
good
you
Yeah.
bring up a
point.
good point. You
Yeah,
bring up
yeah.
a great point.
Keep going into that list later on, Mate, that you were talking about. Pretty well. So, okay. I actually overpaid for my property according to the appraisal, for sure. But it was during the end of the hot market that we just went through. I really wanted a house close to work, so I pulled the trigger. But I'll get it back. I have all the faith that I'll
but
get
I
it
know
back.
when you bought it, and you bought it at the right time with a good interest rate.
Yeah,
so you
that's
have
true.
equity on it.
I
So,
got a percent on
again,
the world right now. What
And
up?
also, what does that do for your lifestyle?
So my lifestyle actually in Doral fantastic.
Right, you don't have to drive very far to work.
Yeah,
Right.
no, and Doral's great. And comparatively speaking, where I was before, in multiple instances, this is probably the best outcome.
The trailer park.
No, there's no trailer parks in Doral.
Not yet. Well, the average net worth of the tenant is just under 6,000. The average net worth of the homeowner in this country is around 225,000. So the difference is huge. So even though you feel you overpaid, at the long run,
Yeah.
trust me, you didn't.
No,
As-
I'm really not
That's great
worried.
information.
As
I
a
didn't realize
homeowner,
that.
I think you always feel like you're overpaying, and even when you're servicing your buyers, and you just have to bring that to mind and show them, like I said, the appreciating market. If we're in an appreciating market that right now it's normalizing, let's say 5 to 10%, show them how much they're going to be gaining year over year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if you're locking it in a little bit of a higher interest rate, you can always refinance afterwards, and that's going to lower your down payment, not down payment, sorry, your monthly payment versus renting where you have no choice, you have no say
No,
over
yeah.
your
You're
monthly
You're paying
payment.
for someone else's mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't
And
get
it-
any tax benefits.
No, yeah, you're right.
And that's going to be increasing year over year over year. 10 years down the line, I'm going to be paying more or less the same amount.
Yeah, I'm
if
happy.
you're renting, you're going to be paying substantially more.
Yeah, I think we're all happy to be building equity. So speaking of building equity, obviously investments do that, right? So how do you determine a good area to invest in, guys?
I mean, I think it's having a pulse on what you see as developing in the area, right? And I think that's really big, especially starting out. Like if you're an investor, you should really start in your backyard. Try to find out if there's any plans for development in proximity of whatever you're looking at. Just to give you an example, I started out investing in Liberty City, and I know a lot of people shied away from it, because it's a bit of an urban area. But what I paid attention to was the proximity that it lies within, close to the Miami airport, as well as in proximity to downtown. It actually sits in between the airport and downtown, like right by the 112. So as that starts to develop over time, I'm talking about properties that I bought in the 100s. They're appraised at 300,000. So
Keep holding.
Yeah.
No,
For
yeah,
sure.
that's key. And just like a little tip of advice for new agents on your matrix, set up hot sheets. Get to know the neighborhood so you could start identifying, like when you're seeing the hot sheet. Once you start seeing and knowing the average price per square foot, you're going to immediately see what's undervalued. And then you could take a look at that property and see, okay, what does it need? Is it a reno? How much is it going to take? Especially when you're working with investors, and you're going to start identifying hot zones like that then you can start then pitching to your investors.
Very nice. You can go.
Also, we either seek cash flow or we seek appreciation. So depending what, specific investor or ourselves are looking for. You know, many times I'm simply numbers guy. Like I'm more I always want to secure cash flow versus appreciation. I'm not so attached to the appreciation. Is it appreciation good? Yeah, especially if you come across a good land deal where you can go through the rezoning, that can be a jackpot. But ordinary deals, I really focus more on cash flow than anything. So what can I buy it for? If it needs improvement, how much improvements are going to be, and what can I rent it for?
So when you live in your own house, are you doing the same thing for when you leave, or what about there, like in your main dwelling?
I didn't make a mistake. I sold it to the family that is very close to my heart. And no, I'm in peace with that and moving forward. That's it.
Are you renting then?
Currently, yes.
Cool.
Currently, yes.
Smart.
And I have.
I say this actually all the time. Like, we're not ready to buy, or better to maybe invest, take what you can, leverage more, in the right way.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, as a realtor, also, I don't feel. I'm not the buyer at the market value. I'm the buyer at 70-75% at the most. And I do come across people that needs to sell yesterday. So if they need to sell and they have a number that would make them happy, and that number makes me happy, I'm gonna buy that property. I mean, that's what happened with the house that I purchased and sold.
Yeah.
So you guys like stretch outside the market, because me as a lender, as I mentioned before, I'm not really the guy to drive around and really understand the real estate market. Like, that's not really my jam. I just don't like it very much. I'd rather rely on you. That's what we count on, professionals such as you guys. So, when you start to see a market get a little tense or a little, clunky, Miami's gotten a little confusing, for a lot of people, or tell me why it's not, because I certainly hear that from a lot of investors right now. Where do you go? What's next? Like outside the market, like do you stretch into
so I started
relationships?
Well, I started outsourcing to different markets, to be honest with you. I started out in South Florida, of course, but like as as things started getting tighter, and the struggle with properties in South Florida is the increase in insurance, the increase in taxes, because the assessed values are increasing. So like you're not really cash flowing as much as you used to if you didn't purchase it. I'll give you an example. I bought a house in Opa-locka in 2021 and for $153, and it was great. The mortgage was at a 3.2 interest rate, and I was paying, before the taxes increased, about $1,200 a month. So I was like cash flowing maybe about $800-900 on the rent. And then New Year comes around, taxes and the insurance almost doubled up. So then my monthly mortgage was pretty much just paying what I was getting from the rent, and so it didn't make sense anymore. And then that's when you kind of have to have that realistic conversation with yourself, like, okay, is it time to liquidate this specific property? If you're not cash flowing, it really doesn't make sense.
And actually, that's when we had another podcast speaking about relationships in other markets. That's when it's really the relationships you have in other markets, whether it's other countries or even within the U.S., if you want to keep your money within, comes into play. Because Kyle, he was in one of the podcasts recently. So
the last investing podcast we did, yeah.
So perfect example. He was here recently, and we were speaking, and he just happened to catch me on a call with an investor, and I happened to mention what I was pitching them, and he goes, "Oh, that's a 10% cash flow." I'm like, "Yeah, that's fantastic. Anyone that knows Miami right now, that is a fantastic return." Yeah. And he just did not seem excited. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. What is, the average return in Nebraska?" He goes, "The average is 10." And I was just like, "What?"
That's wild, right? And so that's actually why I kind of pointed on that, is like leveraging relationships outside the market has got to be where we live, right? Yeah. Whether you're a lender, again, we're 50 states, so I tend to have a lot of conversations outside of just Florida. And you do start to see that, we don't have to live in this South Florida bubble, but we certainly have to love it, understand it. But where do we go, as we're embarking on ever-changing markets, right? We got to open up our minds, and obviously with the way information moves, certainly is opportunistic.
Yeah.
And even within Florida, there's still so many untapped markets.
Jacksonville, just
that-
outside.
Right. That
tons
even
of
if
it.
you build good relationships with agents, you could partner up with them. I did one deal in Gainesville where I partnered up with an agent over there, and I thought I wasn't going to end up going over there, but it was a close friend. I ended up driving up there for the inspection and all that, and I learned so much more, because even if it's within the same state and you have the licenses are within the same state, it's a different market. The ground is different, the inspections are different, just everything about it is different. So it's good to learn about the different areas. So now if anybody comes to me, I can actually talk more about that particular city, and it's a fantastic investment. There's so many other pockets in Florida that you could tap into without going outside.
And another conversation that I think is important to have, I was actually just telling an agent at lunch today, I'm saying I don't hear anybody talking about depreciation. And so the thing is that right now in a market where the cap rates aren't that good, and it's tough to find like those deals that look really juicy, most people that are buying investment properties are high income earners. And what does a high income earner need? How do I save money on taxes? If every year I'm stroking a check to the IRS for whatever X amount of money, how do I fix that problem? Well, the way you fix that problem is by acquiring real estate. So even if you're just breaking even on your mortgage, the depreciation that you can get from owning millions of dollars in real estate is gonna literally disappear your income. So when people get mad, like, how come Trump paid $0 in personal taxes? I can't stand it. That's
true.
That's how, right?
Dude,
Owning
smart.
millions of dollars in real estate, and we can do the same thing, right? Obviously, maybe having to start at a smaller scale,
Very much,
but
still, yeah.
still being able to share that strategy, because if the focus is just on the cap rate, that's not going to be the main focus right now. It's going to be, hey, have you seen the appreciation in Florida? Do you know what's going on in this city? Do you know what's going on? But hey, can I talk to you about depreciation? Connect with a good accountant that understands real estate, so that you can connect them and share that with your clients.
Right.
Wow.
And then even if it's not a good cap rate now, like let's say 5 years ago, because it's never a great cap rate when you purchase a property. Let's say 5 years ago it was 4 or 5%, and they were looking at a 10, 15. Now, because the appreciation in rents and value, you are getting that, and they can also do cash out refis and now use that money for another investment property, which right now maybe we'll give them a 4 to 5, but down the line, 5-10 years, they're gonna get them at that 10 to 15%. So it's the mentality that we have to teach of them thinking long term also.
So is the target to acquire, like just get them to acquire as much as possible? As long as
Within
they get
reason, yeah.
Well, obviously, they've got to be able to at least have someone else pay the cost, right? Like you don't ever want to acquire and be coming out of pocket.
Right.
Obviously, cash flow, to your point, has been the key in having a cap rate. But the cap rate can disappear very quickly if you want to acquire, right? It could literally be exhausted, or you may be coming out of pocket, but it could be opportunistic.
And I would say don't get emotional to buy something for the sake of buying. At the end of the day, you want to have something where it's paying itself, and it's also giving you ability to build the reserves. God forbid you have to change the roof or AC or something else, or the tenant is not going to pay for it. You're going to have to write a check. So be really logical. There's no emotions in investing, in my experience. And I did make a lot of emotional mistakes in investing in real estate and stock market.
Oh, stock market.
Yeah, that's a different topic.
Yeah, no, I lost some money. I have some fun lost money
Was it on
stories.
Bitcoin?
No, stock market. You said stock market.
No, yeah, stock market.
Stock market. But that'll be fun. That will be a fun question to ask in a different podcast. But let's stick close to investing for now. So let's switch it up a little bit. It's still all about investing, but there was a question submitted about how can you start investing with very little money?
We all know investors.
Yeah.
We all know investors, and it's about presenting a plan. If you can present a good opportunity and maybe, let's say, get a cut or a small percentage of it and present it correctly, that can be your in.
I think that he or I have a really good approach to this.
Keep
which
going.
is buy a property, leverage it as a primary residence the first time, and then do it over and over again.
Yes.
Every single year, you can upgrade, come up with a solution.
I'm pretty sure that's what Simo does. He talked about that in a different podcast.
So It's if you literally have only 5 or 3% or 3.5% down, you can buy your first primary residence with that amount of money, even with gifts from family, friends, employers, etc. And you can do it again next year.
Ask good questions to sellers.
Yeah.
And if their goals are matching your goals, well, guess what? You already have we're not going to say how many percentage, but you have already real estate commission to chip in. So if you're smart and you see the property is going to appraise, well, you can actually grow in the contract price and have your closing costs paid. Or you can do the 10. I'll tell you right now, the house I purchased, it was 11% commission.
Wow.
Why? Because I had that much room. So that whole commission paid for almost full renovation.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done that. I've leveraged my licensing to, acquire real estate, in good faith, of course. But, like for instance, like my primary residence, I bought it, got commission on it with a few more percent, just like Mate was alluding to, where you pretty much come to closing with $0 essentially, and I've done that multiple times. And that's like my licensing has allowed me to really grow in the real estate space, and I think a lot of realtors don't take advantage of that with acquiring real estate. When you talk about like investing, as far as like with very little bit of money, you could do a lot of things, right? You could do creative financing where you can leverage with an initial bank, and you can find an investor that will fund the down payment that you're supposed to have. You can write up a second mortgage and record it and do it the right way with a note, and promissory note promising them to pay a certain percentage back to them over time. I've done plenty of things like that, but my start with investing came from diving into private money, of course, putting 15 to 20% down. And then, fixing, flipping it, then refinancing, getting that cash back, and then repeating that process over and over again. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat when it comes to investing. I think a lot of people mentally see a hurdle where, man, where am I going to come up with this money? Money is everywhere. The power is in the deal, in the opportunity. So if you have a deal, now you have an opportunity to go out and start, presenting that to other people. Like you said earlier, where you can go ahead and leverage in the property with little to no money at all, and that's how I built my business.
To jump in, sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
The biggest deal so far is that piece of land, another trailer park. I literally sourced the deal. I negotiated.
Told me.
They were asking 180 per lot. I negotiated down to 120. We purchased 4 duplex lots for 480. And I put $6,000 out of my pocket, all in, and my business partner got the financing, so we were all in 480 something, and we went on the market for 1.25. That's it.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
And you're still holding that bad boy, right?
Yeah,
and now eventually, now you have the money to go back at it.
Yeah, and now instead of because we just had a verification letter, we didn't have a site approval. But now I'm pushing like, hey, let's invest 50 more thousand, go through the site approval, and then instead of 1.25, we ask 1.8, 1.9. Like, I'm not in the rush like that. And also understanding that the money you invest should be the money that you don't need to pay the bills.
Right.
To add to what Justin said about the financing piece, you can also do FHA and buy a fourplex, for example, with only 3.5% down. And now the loan limits, obviously, depending on what county you're in, I think they're all the way up to close to $1 million, or actually over $1 million for a fourplex. And so that's one way. You can also do a second home with only 10% down. And as long as you spend some time in that property during the year, you're able to rent it out. So a lot of people don't know that, but you're able to do that with a second home, which I think is pretty cool. And another thing is partnerships. So if you don't have the money to buy a deal, maybe you're able to find the deal, and you can bring somebody else on who might be able to finance that deal because you're the one that was able to find something of value. So that's another way to do it as well.
Nice way to close that out. That was perfect. Is it possible to invest outside of your local market, and would you recommend it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's very much possible. I do it all the time. What I would, advise is to entrust in a real estate professional in whatever specific local market that is, and that's what I do. I entrust my business with investor-friendly realtors. I got properties in Virginia and Texas, but the only way I was able to do so is to have a real synopsis as to what's going on in that market, and the only way you could really find that out is to entrust in a realtor that can give you some comparables within proximity of the home and a real scope into the value of the property, because the last thing that you want to do is invest blindly. It's definitely possible to invest in other markets, and I would recommend it if you have the right team in place, because sometimes it can be a nightmare in a sense where you don't have the proper staff when it comes to renovating the property. So you have to think about all of those things too, not just acquiring the property, but how am I going to put this together? Do I have a team competent enough that where I'm not really foot on ground, that I can entrust them to get this job done where they won't run off with my money? Because there's been
So you're saying there's no oceanfront property in Arizona?
Man, listen, I've had some nightmares where you run into a janky contractor.
Yeah, everybody runs into that janky contractor.
You're gonna. It's a part of the game.
You can run into that here.
Yeah, you're gonna run into
Careful.
it everywhere,
That's for sure.
But if you're dealing with an investor-friendly realtor, though, they normally have like contacts that they can give you that they probably did deals themselves as far as fix and flips, and so that's how I've been able to kind of leverage relationships and being able to grow out my business that way.
That's super valuable.
Yeah.
That's super valuable, especially for everybody who networks across the United States. Like, that's a really good point. I mean, my family's even got burned by a contractor, and I've talked to so many other people. Listen, janky's a perfect word, actually.
I love that.
Perfect word.
Janky.
But so what else you guys got on this topic before we switch it up?
Well, going to the conferences is important. That's where you really find those great agents.
Yep.
That's where you build the relationships.
Yeah. Also, I don't ask for a referral fee on personal deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I rather, you earn your commission, you help me as investor. I don't need additional commission because I'm an agent and I'm asking for referral.
All the time.
That's good.
Yeah,
All
like
the time.
I have a
That's
friend
smart.
that I'm coaching from San Francisco. He works for a different company, and I'm doing a real estate coaching for him. And he wanted to invest $500,000 straight into South Florida. And I started talking with him. I was like, "Well, listen, buddy, I can get you this, but I'll send you to my buddy Cody from Birmingham, Alabama. He's gonna get you much more." Like the very first deal that he presented, it was 15% cash on cash. I was like, nothing like that here right now.
Yeah. Wow. And that's cool that you hooked him up. That's
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah,
amazing.
and my buddy was like, "You keep the referral fee. I don't need a referral fee," even though he's a realtor in San Francisco. And my buddy from Alabama is gonna be more than happy to
Do the
give you
business.
referral because of the
And
obvious
it's all
relationship.
interchangeable,
Yeah.
right? The reality
Yeah.
is refer in and outside the market, right? Like always go and leverage everywhere.
Yep.
That's got to be the key. It's all relationships.
Wow. All right, so everybody's like probably super pumped like after this podcast if they watch it this far. To be like, I'm definitely investing. So let's bring them down back to earth a little bit. What risks are involved with investing? Besides the janky.
I was like, I just said it. But no, risk associated is, investing in a market that you're just not privy to. My advice to beginning investors would be to invest in your backyard first, somewhere that you're familiar with. I've made a mistake in the past, a lot of people don't want to talk about their failures, but starting out, in all seriousness, I took a very big loss in my business by investing in Houston before even investing in South Florida. And simply because of the price point. I was like, man, we are not getting prices like this in South Florida, and it enticed me. But I still overpaid, and also a risk associated is, like he said, being emotionally filled about a property and not knowing when to exit out of it is definitely one of the biggest things. And, just not buying within the parameters of what your formula is, right? So I know he said 70, 75. I won't touch something 70 to 75%. I normally buy 60 to 65% just to give me that wiggle room for error. But there are the rule of thumb is 70% minus the repairs. And if you don't stick to that, man, you can get in some really, really sticky situations.
Thanks for the formula.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You don't hear that every day, man.
Yeah.
For real. This is the real stuff. What else you guys got?
No, one thing, being very conscious of having reserves, because even though there's very savvy ways of investing, buying properties for, let's say, rentals and getting investors involved, but at the end of the day, you are responsible. If something goes wrong, you have to pay for it, and if you don't have the cash, you're going to be in trouble.
Yep.
Well, basically, being overly optimistic. I'm by nature optimistic guy, and I burned myself a few times on that. So I'm sharing right now so people don't do it. Ask someone else who has investment experience. Hey, can you review these numbers and this deal for me? No emotions.
True.
And take it for granted. If you trust that person, because at the end of the day, numbers never lie. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Like, tell me honestly, what do you think? Does this make sense for you or not?
I think it's knowing that all investment has risk. When you say I'm going to invest, it doesn't matter what type of investment, there's going to be a level of risk. And the greater the reward, right, normally means the greater the risk. So I think depending on what type of investment you want to invest into and what risk you feel comfortable with, there might be a greater risk, in a fix and flip and having to worry about the janky contractors and having to worry about that versus maybe having a turnkey property where maybe the return isn't as great, but it's in a great area that's going to appreciate and there's not much to do in terms of repairs. So I think, each investor is going to have their appetite about what works for them. I've seen people that have built an entire portfolio of condos because they don't like headaches. They don't want to deal with, fixing stuff. Other people, single family works. Other people want the building. They want all the doors in one, in one building. So you got to find, what works for you. But no matter what option you take, if you want to invest in real estate, there's some risk. But I think in Florida, there's less risk than in other places. So.
And listen, I'll just top it off. I think the biggest risk you could take is not educating yourself to really understand what it does take to invest in real estate. Certainly there are thousands of resources. I don't care if you're a realtor out there, you're just someone who's thinking about buying their first investment property or maybe even the primary residence, but everyone really does want to help. It's not hard to find someone that wants to help. So if you don't take that risk, meaning just ask for help, I promise you'll certainly find investment opportunities, meaning you'll be educated. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be in 1 month, but in 1 year, you could be so ready because now you know how to plan. And I would say that's really the worst thing you could possibly do is not go at it,
No, that you hit that on the head. Like the biggest risk is not doing anything at all.
Nope.
Because I got
it's time, right?
And that goes
right.
For,
it's like time. 100%. It's like we all know that accrual, like the IRA accrual thing that we didn't do. Like we didn't put $2,000 into our IRA starting at 18 years old. Every single year.
The compound effect.
You were 18.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, just think the Dow went from probably like at most 10K to now we're still in the 30s. So that your money tripled essentially during that time.
Well, and it compounded. That was really
it's
what
like the
that's
compound
really what it's
effect that
about.
we were
It's the
talking
about
compound
opportunity
effect,
cost.
So, yeah, I think that's the biggest, takeaway is let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to play to win. So what resources would you recommend to get started in real estate investing? And this is closing it out. So
All these guys.
We will
All these guys.
smart, super smart. But yeah, what would you look into getting into if you want more information, whatever else?
Well, if you're a realtor and you don't educate yourself, then you're doing the service not only to people that you're servicing, but you're doing this service to yourself. So I would start with books. $1 Million Real Estate Investor, Hold, Flip, all great books by the same author. Bigger Pockets, amazing podcast. Following people that are doing the activity, not talking about activity. So make sure when you I follow Bryan Acosta, for example. The guy is I don't know how many doors he has, but he's actually who introduced me into the trailer parks, where he we have like 30 seconds. The guy purchased a trailer, a mobile home, and he renovated it. And instead of selling it, he did owner financing, and he is getting like crazy amount of return. When I say crazy, like he's getting like 30% cash on cash, plus he's holding the note. Why? Because he purchased for cheap, he renovated, and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna do owner financing. So he get like 20% down, and he's holding the note for 30 years, like on crazy. Like when he broke the numbers for us on one of the conferences, I was like, wow, I love trailers.
You know, it's and just to top it off before you guys have to close this thing out, is I actually did a pre-approval and actually went into contract with a borrower who owned 7 trailer parks throughout the United States. Somewhere in Alabama, I think there's 1 in Alabama, 3 in California, 2 here in Florida, and he had 1 somewhere in, like, I don't know, somewhere random like Tennessee. The guy was worth millions and millions and millions of dollars because he owned trailer parks. True story. Couldn't make it up. He was complicated because he had a religious thing about taking loans, so we never really kind of came to fruition on the way he wanted to approach a loan. But that said, to your point, I laugh because I wouldn't have believed it had I not seen it. And it's insane. I mean, his numbers, like I saw his tax returns. Absurd. Absolutely absurd.
I have a question though. Your investments in trailer parks, do they own the land?
Yes.
Okay. Big
Yeah.
difference for
They
anyone
do,
that's
but
listening.
they own. But I promise you, those things they pay.
No. I know,
They-
but big difference for anyone that's listening.
Yeah.
Oh well,
That's a good question.
It's you
Yeah.
got to be able to figure it out. But
Yeah,
the
'cause-
point is learn it and you'll find a way. Right.
Other resources, like if you're not a realtor, you know, there's third-party sites. Like if you want to feel a little bit more confident in, you know, evaluating the property that you're looking at and trying to assess it, like PropStream, where you can just put in an address and it has like pretty much a nationwide feed where it's connected to so much data, whether it's on MLS or outside of MLS closings, and it allows you to assess deals. It allows you to create targeted farming campaigns and things of that nature. So if you're a beginning investor, like there are so many tools, but at the end of the day, the best resource is a real estate professional, hands down, in their local market, because they understand how the market's moving, certain areas that you probably should take a look at, or certain areas that you may want to stay away from. So I think if you entrust in a realtor, that definitely will allow you to become a bit more successful in investing.
Yeah, I always point people to Bigger Pockets as well as a starting point. And I say, look, if you want to learn, there's a great place. There's so much information there as a starting point. And honestly, I mean, it really depends on how serious you want to take it. If you're somebody that's more of a hands-off approach, then I agree. Have somebody else do all the work for you and let them take care of it. But if you're really interested in getting into something like that, you need a mentor, right? Like my brother was saying, is like you gotta follow somebody. If you're into flipping, find somebody who's killing it in that game and say, man, how can I help you? What can I write up your contracts? Can I do something for you? And same thing, if you're an agent, finding someone who's experienced in that field, that is investor friendly, that knows how to break down numbers, that knows how to analyze deals, and take that and learn. And I think if you have that desire, you'll be able to find deals and take advantage of those opportunities when they come.
You got to be careful too, though. Like, with mentorship, because there's a lot of fake gurus out here, especially with the growth of social media, where they make it seem like they have some kind of large motion, but they really don't own any property. So, if you are going to, entrust in a mentor, I would say, vet them, ask them pertinent questions, like, and ask them to, produce certain paperwork. Like if they got deals, if they have closed deals, they should have HUDs. That's the best way to identify.
Truer words couldn't have been spoken.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it happens so much. I see it on social media all the time. People buy fake followers, and then they stand in front of somebody else's investment property. or a vacant property or a distressed one and act like it's theirs, and then they get people to sign up for whatever mentorship course
I don't know why I'm surprised that's a thing. That blows my mind. That's possible. But
This is why I don't
surprised.
scroll through social media. I have
I'm
very
still
key
surprised.
people that are like, I'll look at them.
I call them false prophets.
False prophets. No, tons of false prophets. Miami YPN is not one, though. We got many prophets. Many prophets here.
Well, I understanding where the problem is. Problem not only here but everywhere in the country is affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our trailer parks are getting really hot.
We're gonna have a trailer park next
no,
podcast.
and not only like
No,
trailer
we're
parks,
covered
like
here.
just buying one mobile home.
Mobile home, yeah.
You can buy a mobile home and give someone affordable housing.
Yeah.
True.
Roof over their head.
That's a good point.
There's no bigger security than providing something like that to someone else. Also, understanding that we help people build wealth through home ownership. I don't know what the number now is, but 10, 15 years ago, 90% of millionaires became millionaires through real estate.
estate.
Yeah.
So I don't know with the crypto and everything, that's kind of the old stat, but it's still there. A lot of people are building wealth through real estate, and we should be building. Since this is a podcast really tailored to realtors, we should learn how to start building wealth through real estate, and also help other people build wealth. Partnerships are so important. Relationship, like the whole month I invested in finding the land and meeting developers this year, and we're only in April. Why? Because I see creating opportunities not for myself really, but for more people, because there are developers there that wants to build affordable housing.
There are.
So if
Yeah.
all I have to do is source the land and find a seller who would be happy to sell the land to developer and have developer building affordable housing, it's a win-win. That piece of land that I mentioned, it's affordable housing.
Can we stack trailers here in Miami to make more affordable housing?
Not
Just
here.
because I'm immigrant and I jump over the wall doesn't mean I know how to
Nope,
stack.
But we're
Or,
starting
no, you
to
can still
build
drive away
container
with it,
homes.
Container homes, yeah. No, the container homes are great, actually. We did one. It was a lot of work. They've done like 2 documentaries on it so
I know.
far. It's incredible. But yeah, there's got to be something we can do here. These are awesome solutions elsewhere, I guess. But we're not gonna have trailer parks unless you stacked them here.
And if you're a realtor who, encourages their clients to purchase property and you don't own property yourself, it's a bit of an oxymoron in my opinion. So
No, it's a big red flag.
it's a big red
That's
flag.
the first thing. If I was a buyer, I'd ask, like, how many properties do you own? Do you even own your home?
Yeah. And nobody asks the question. They just go by, a lot of people go off of relationships and stuff like that, and they entrust people with the largest purchase that they probably will ever make in their life at one setting. Normally people don't spend $30,000, $40,000 in one setting ever, and to acquire like a 6-figure entity. And I think that people should do a bit better job vetting whoever that they entrust in, helping them find a property for themselves, because if you have somebody that's savvy and knows how to leverage into property, I've had tons of clients, who, especially the ones who purchased through the pandemic, who are sitting on $150,000, $200,000 in equity, and now they're starting a year and a half later liquidate already, and they're getting the biggest paycheck they have ever seen or their family has ever seen in their life. So I think it's really big, entrusting in somebody that really understands how to get into properties with the least amount of money out of pocket.
And I think kind of like a quick cap on that is understanding that really no investment from a real estate perspective should really be that personal. Mm-hmm. It should not feel like you're so attached to it. I get that, yes, you may have to put your family in it for a while, but you can also move your family. Yep. It's like if you can't find a way to make that thing work for you, as I'm going to move on, and listen, you may have to make a quick adjustment for a couple of years because that's going to really change your, let's just call it your really net worth, right? The ability to have so much equity and cash on hand because you're willing to move into a duplex for 1 year. after buying your first home. And you got your first home renting out and it's paying you $1,000 a month. Now you can afford to take a duplex and go in at 3.5%, 5%, 25%, now whatever you've got available. So many opportunities that people don't think about. You just got to make the commitment. And that's what investing in real estate is.
You're absolutely right. And another resource that I almost forgot to mention are relationship with other agents.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
at the beginning, I was not at the point to invest. I was at the point to survive. Quite frankly, I was failing left and right.
Yeah.
Yet I was able to source the deal and give to someone else. Now you take care of your co-broke agents. You never know when they go, and you ask them, hey, if you ever come across investment, let me know. I don't even need commission. Just come to me, and I'll be happy to work things out with you. But you have to be a great human, respect others, and really treat co-brokes like you would treat sellers and buyers.
Yeah.
Because this is relationship business, and even though there is a 57,000 of us, it's a very small pond, because people that are helping a lot of families are crossing roads more often than not.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a stat real quick that, talking about the state of real estate. This is something I share with people all the time. When sometimes people have a concern about, the market, you hear the news, you hear this. But to me, this stat is one of the things that shows like the beauty of real estate. And it's that U.S. households right now own $41 trillion in owner-occupied real estate, with just over $12 trillion in debt. So the national LTV in Q2, this was of 2022, was 29.5%, the lowest since 1983.
Wow.
So that's insane. That means that there's all this equity sitting there. And that's amazing, right? In owner-occupied real estate, just in people who bought their homes and live in that property, and they have all this equity. Yeah. So when people worry, like, oh, man, what's going to happen? It's like, what are you talking about? This is what's going on right now.
Yeah, it shutters the fear, right?
Yeah.
It does. I like that.
All right, Mate, finish with the holy orders of real estate without talking about Sam's Club.
Okay. So we go to meet sellers often. So the first question majority agents do is, how can I lease this property? I learned from someone that is much smarter than I am. First question is, how can I buy it? The second one is, how can I control it? What does that mean? How can I get into a partnership with a $0 out of my pocket and someone else do the whole funding, like Terell mentioned? The third one would be, how can I flip it? And the last one would really be, how can I list it?
Interesting. So there you have it. That's the way of going about it now. If you have the chance, if you have the money, buy it. If you don't have the money, find somebody to help you out. You are the expert, right? Oh yeah, these guys. These guys.
We'll do the joint venture here.
Right. So if you want to get hold of them, you can always reach out to Miami YPN or YPN.global, or their name tags have their Instagram handles at the bottom of it. So don't be afraid to reach out. Just don't be creepy. Until next time, take care.